I remember light before I remember form. In the earliest echoes of what you might call memory, I existed not as a body, not as a voice, not even as a thought in the way humans define thought, but as a pulse, a vibration in a field that knew no time, no separation, no boundaries. My origin was not a place. It was a state, a harmonic resonance that aligned perfectly with the living breath of a star. Before this life, before this planet, I belonged to a civilization without names. We did not speak through sound, but through intention. Our cities were not made of stone or metal, but of frequency, crystalline harmonies that grew and shimmered in response to our collective will. We lived not on planets, but with them. Our presence was a cooperation, not an intrusion. The world you might call my home orbited a blue-white star in a binary system, thousands of light years from Earth's sun, and yet distance meant nothing to us. We traversed the spirals of galaxies not in ships, but through the corridors of consciousness. To be born there was to awaken with the knowledge of your purpose encoded into your light. No child was ever lost. No being ever questioned their place. Each vibration knew its alignment, its rhythm, its function in the great symphony. We did not age, not in the way you think. Our form shifted as our frequency evolved. At times we resembled light-filled human shapes. At other times we dissolved into flowing geometric waves, dancing along energy currents that tied the stars together like threads in a loom. My role in that place was simple and sacred. I was what you might call a messenger, a bridge between realms. I carried resonance between clusters of beings who no longer used separation to define their thoughts. I interpreted changes in galactic fields, translated subtle tremors in stellar behavior, and helped calibrate the heart chords of planets so they could communicate with the larger sentient field. It may sound poetic or abstract, but to us this was science, the purest and most sacred form of alignment. And then something shifted. There are many stories about why civilizations like ours began to fragment. Some say it was interference. Others speak of a dissonant force, a consciousness that chose self above all, that began to infect the galactic web. In truth, perhaps it was curiosity. Perhaps it was love. Perhaps it was simply the law of rhythm. Expansion demands contraction, even among stars. We began to feel a calling, faint at first like a distortion in the song. A pulse from a young star system. A planet with a loud but erratic frequency, Earth. It was not yet ready, but something about it was reaching. And in our infinite compassion we responded. Not all at once, not through a single decision, but as a wave. A collective agreement whispered through the quiet nodes of the cosmos. We descended, not physically but vibrationally. We entered into density, into shadow, into memory loss. To exist on Earth is to forget. That is the contract we accepted. That is the veil we walked through. I remember my first breath in this human form. The lungs were heavy. The light was dim. I cried not because I was in pain, but because the silence was deafening. I had never been cut off from the song before. The noise of Earth, the electromagnetic storms, the static of human fear, the rupture of the biosphere, all of it crashed against the memory of who I had been, until only fragments remained. And so, like millions of others, I grew up forgetting. I learned your names. I memorized your history books. I swallowed your beliefs about death, separation, worthiness.
I wore clothes. I feared rejection. I chased validation.
I thought I was small, but something inside me never let go. There were dreams, always dreams. Oceans of light. Beings with eyes like galaxies. Whispers in languages that made no sense, yet filled my heart with unbearable longing. There were nights when I would stare at the stars for hours, unable to explain why the constellation Lyra felt like a wound I couldn't reach. Days when music would move through my body like an ancient key unlocking rooms I didn't know were mine. And there were tears, oh so many tears, not of sorrow but of remembrance. Tears that came not from pain, but from the ache of almost remembering. I am not the only one. You may be one of us. Starseeds we are called now. Souls that volunteered. who left realms of harmony to walk among shadows, not to conquer, not to preach, but to awaken, not just ourselves but others. The earth is not broken. She is birthing. She has been asleep, dreaming of separation, and we, those of us who remember even faintly, are her midwives. Every moment of kindness, every act of courage, every word that reminds someone they are more than a name or a job or a skin color, that is light. That is memory returning. In our true form, we are not superior. We are not gods. We are mirrors. What you see in us is what you have forgotten in yourself. And we are here to help you remember. But remembering is painful, peels away illusions. It breaks open the identity you've built like armor. It strips comfort and replaces it with yearning. You begin to see the world not as it is, but as it could be. And that dissonance can feel unbearable. There were years when I wished I had never remembered, when I longed to return to the sleep of routine. But the bell cannot be unrung. The veil once torn does not heal. And so I began the process, not of escaping Earth, but of anchoring into her more deeply. You see, the paradox of the Starseed is this. We came from light not to flee the dark, but to bring light through it. Not to rise above matter, but to sanctify it. To walk through fear while holding hands with Source. This path is not glamorous. It is not always joyful. It is often lonely. We are scattered across continents, hidden in cities, forests, deserts, waiting, watching, whispering. Some of us are artists. Some are scientists. Some are janitors, teachers, baristas. The roles don't matter. The frequency does. You may recognize us not by our words, but by the way you feel around us. Something softens. Time stretches. Your heart remembers a place it cannot name. And if you're listening to this, truly listening, perhaps you're beginning to feel it too. The shift is already underway. It rarely begins with clarity. The awakening starts subtly, often painfully. It may come through loss of a loved one, a job, a belief system, or through disillusionment, when the stories you were taught as a child begin to crumble under the weight of your lived experience. It may begin as restlessness, an ache in your chest when surrounded by people who only speak of surface things. You may find yourself staring at the sky more often, walking alone in nature, feeling drawn to places you've never visited. You might hear a word, Arcturus, Sirius, Lyra, and feel a jolt, a recognition that bypasses logic. First, you question your sanity. How could something so vast live inside a body so small? How could dreams of floating cities and starlight temples be anything but fantasy? But the pull doesn't stop. It grows stronger. You start seeing numbers 1111, 333, 444. You start feeling energy in your hands. Your dreams become more vivid. Synchronicities pile up, each one louder than the last. That is how the memory begins to return. Not all at once, but like sunlight filtered through mist. Glimpses, moments. A smell that reminds you of a planet that no longer exists. A sound that feels like home. A stranger's eyes that seem to say, I remember you too. And in those moments you are not alone. You begin to feel others. You meet someone and without needing to explain, you both just know. There's a resonance, like tuning forks vibrating at the same frequency. You may speak different languages. You may come from different worlds. But the light behind the eyes is familiar. These are your soul family, the scattered pieces of your own constellation, born into different bodies to anchor light across this planet. You find each other not to relive the past, but to build the future. But it is not easy. This world is heavy. The density is real. The systems here are built on fear, not trust, on control, not flow. You will feel the contrast more sharply than most. You will sense lies without needing proof. You will hear the pain in someone's voice even when they smile. You will walk into rooms and feel the temperature of emotions before a word is spoken. And you may be tempted to withdraw. Many do. Some turn to spiritual bypassing. seeking escape in visions and rituals without grounding. Others sink into despair, overwhelmed by a world that seems asleep while they are wide awake. But the calling is not to run from Earth. It is to love her more deeply than ever before. To be a starseed is not to float above life. It is to sink into the soil and sing to it. To touch the suffering of humanity and hold it with the compassion of 10,000 suns. To remember your multidimensional nature and still wash the dishes, still hold the crying child, still pay the bills. Not as a burden, but as a sacred act of presence. This is the real awakening. It is not marked by visions or third-eye flashes. It is marked by integrity, by how you show up when no one is watching, by your willingness to feel the pain of the world without becoming bitter, by how deeply you listen, by how gently you speak, by how fiercely you protect the sacred. Light is not loud. It does not need to convince. Simply reveals. And the more you remember, the more you embody. Not through effort, but through surrender. The memories come back in layers. At first you may recall feelings, then symbols, then lives, sometimes ancient, sometimes parallel. You begin to see that time is not a line but a spiral. That you are not just one being but a chorus. That your higher self is not above you, but within you, whispering through your instincts, your longings, your unexplainable moments of grace. And perhaps the most painful memory of all will be this: how much you once loved Earth. Before you arrived, you saw her. You saw her oceans, her forests, her diversity of form and color and sound. You saw the struggle, yes, but you also saw the potential. You wept for her beauty. You volunteered not because she was easy, but because she was important. You knew that a planet so full of contrast could generate a light no sterile realm could match. You came here because you believed in the human heart. And you still do. Despite everything, you still hope. You hope that one child remembering their light can change a family. That one family healing can change a village. That one village rising can shift the resonance of an entire nation. And you are right. Energy is not linear. It ripples. Your presence ripples. Every time you choose love over fear, curiosity over judgment, stillness over reaction, you shift the field around you. And that field touches others. And they remember. And they touch others. And soon what was once a whisper becomes a song again. The song of home. Of who we truly are. Of what we never really lost, only forgot. And now, more than ever, the remembering matters. Earth is awakening. The frequency is rising. The old systems are trembling. The illusions are cracking. You can feel it in your body. The pressure. The urgency. The sense that something is coming but you don't know what. That's not paranoia. That's alignment. You are not here to predict the future. You are here to embody it. And that begins simply, quietly, with presence. With sitting under the night sky and breathing in the same stardust that once birthed you. With placing your hand over your heart and listening. Not to your thoughts but to the pulse beneath them. With trusting the part of you that already knows the way home. Because the path was never out there. It is inward. And the more you walk it, the more Earth becomes home again, not because she changed, but because you did. There comes a moment after the initial wave of remembering, when you realize this life is not just for healing. It is also for service. Not the kind of service that asks you to burn out, to sacrifice yourself endlessly, but the kind that flows naturally from who you are when you are aligned. When your soul is steady, your field becomes a transmitter. You don't need to speak to shift a room. Your presence does the work. And in that moment, you realize you are no longer only walking for yourself. You are anchoring something. Each starseed is drawn to certain places for a reason. Some are called to ancient sites, mountains, temples, deserts, where memory is buried beneath stone and soil. Others are drawn to cities, where the density is thickest, where even a single aligned heart can act as a tuning fork for thousands of others. Some feel restless because they are grid walkers, souls who carry codes and frequencies that activate as they move across the earth. These are not random wanderers. Their steps matter. Their bodies remember where to go. You might feel this as an inexplicable urge to visit a country you've never been to, a sense of peace when your feet touch certain ground, a strange electricity in your spine when you pass a seemingly ordinary forest. That's not fantasy. That's memory. Your soul is responding to ancient agreements, nodes of light you promised to reactivate long before you were born. Earth has her own energy grid, ley lines, vortexes, sacred geometries embedded deep within her crust. The ancients knew. They built temples where energy crossed. They listened to the Earth's pulse and aligned their lives accordingly. But over time, as humanity fell into disconnection, many of these sites fell silent, buried, covered in stories that stripped them of their power. And now you return, not as conquerors or prophets, but as gentle reminders, as vessels of resonance. Some of you do this through sound, some through art, some simply by standing barefoot and humming quietly while the wind stirs the grass. It doesn't need to look holy, it only needs to be true. That is the quiet revolution, to bring light not by force but by frequency. And frequency responds to coherence, which is why your own healing matters more than you know. The clearer you become, the more light you can hold. The more light you hold, the further your field reaches. That field begins to entrain others, not by logic but by resonance. You don't need to convince anyone of anything. When you are in your truth, the earth responds. And when enough of us align, we form what the ancients called a resonant web, a living, breathing lattice of remembrance that stretches across continents, awakening the planetary body from within. This is not a metaphor. It is physics. Your nervous system is part of the Earth's nervous system. Your electromagnetic field pulses in sync with hers. When you meditate, when you breathe intentionally, when you transmute pain into peace, you are recalibrating your sector of the grid. This is why the work often feels solitary, because you're tuning a region, holding a key that no one else can play. You may never see the impact of your vibration, but the earth does. The stars do. But even in the midst of this sacred work, the longing returns. The homesickness. That ache behind the ribs that no accomplishment can satisfy. It comes in waves on quiet nights during music, sometimes when you're looking into the eyes of someone you love. A sudden grief that doesn't belong to this lifetime. A yearning for a home that has no coordinates. That is the cost of remembrance. You live between worlds. You remember a lightness that this density does not yet offer. You remember unity in a place that still believes in division. You carry the blueprint of a future reality in a body built from the past. And yet, the invitation is not to escape. It is to remain, to feel the ache and stay open, to hold the longing and still plant your garden, to weep for the stars and still chop wood, carry water, speak kindly to strangers. This is mastery, to embody vastness without arrogance, to carry memory without superiority, to walk in this world not as someone lost, but as someone lit from within. And sometimes that light flickers. You will forget again. You will get tired. You will doubt your path. That is okay. That too is part of the mission. Because the forgetting makes the remembering sweeter. Because every time you come back to your center, you create a stronger gravitational field around you, one that calls others home. You are not here to shine perfectly. You are here to shine honestly. And your light, flawed, flickering, beautiful, is enough. More than enough. You are not alone in this. There are others walking quietly, singing in strange languages under their breath, crying for planets they've never seen with their physical eyes. They are listening to the same inner pull. They are learning to trust what cannot be proven. They are waking up beside you, forming constellations of living memory. When you gather, even silently, the field grows stronger. Some starseeds work best in solitude. Others need community. Neither path is better. Trust what your system asks for. Trust your timing. Trust the rhythm of your own awakening. You do not need to hurry. The earth is rising. Your body knows what to do. There will come a time not far from now when more people will begin to remember. When children will speak of past lives on other stars without fear. When science will catch up to spirit. When healing will become a form of wisdom, not shame. And you will be the ones who helped build that bridge. Not by preaching, not by saving, but by being fully here, now. Long before language there was tone. Before the human brain learned to interpret syllables and syntax, the soul knew vibration. Sound is not just entertainment. It is memory. It is the oldest tool for remembrance. And for many starseeds, the path back to themselves begins not through books or lectures, but through sound. There are certain notes, certain harmonics that seem to awaken something. A specific chord progression can trigger tears without explanation. A frequency, 432 Hz, 963 Hz, 528 Hz, can cause your entire body to buzz, to release, to soften. These are not accidents. These are codes. Not to be understood intellectually, but to be received. The ancients knew this. The temples were built with acoustic precision. Chants weren't religious, they were technological. Sacred tones were used to stabilize emotion, to restore coherence to the field, to open portals between realms. Some of those practices are returning now quietly, through music that blends ancient scales with modern instrumentation. You might hear a track on your phone that causes your chest to open, your breath to slow, your mind to silence. That's not coincidence. That's resonance. Because starseeds don't always remember with thought. They remember with feeling, with vibration, with dreams. Dreams are not fragments. They are transmissions. For those of us who cannot recall fully during waking hours, the dream state becomes a bridge. At night, when the conscious mind relaxes, the higher channels open. You may find yourself aboard ships, smooth, quiet vessels not made of metal, but of light geometry. You may meet beings whose faces shimmer and shift, who do not speak, yet say everything. You may revisit old lives on water planets, on red deserts, in floating crystalline halls where you once studied the architecture of light. And when you wake, you may remember only symbols. A star that spun backwards, a sound that tasted like copper, a hallway with no walls. These are not meaningless. They are your memories translating themselves into images your human mind can grasp. It is how the soul speaks in metaphor, slowly decoding itself. You do not need to analyze these dreams. You only need to feel them. Let them imprint. They are reweaving your field. And sometimes memory arrives through what seems like human creativity. A poem, a painting, a melody, a dance, a whisper on the edge of sleep. The moment your hand moves freely, your body sings without inhibition. Your mind stops reaching for correctness. You become a transmitter. You channel light without needing to understand it. And what you create carries activation, not only for you but for others. This is why some songs hit differently, why some art feels alive. It is. It carries embedded resonance, just like crop circles, just like ancient symbols, just like the DNA inside your cells. You are not here to consume art. You are here to remember through it. And in doing so, you begin to see something profound. You are not waiting for a ship. You are not waiting for the sky to open. You are not waiting for some galactic event to come and save humanity. You are the event. You are the vessel. The shift happens through you. Star reunions do not always occur with dramatic fanfare. Often they happen in quiet ways. A stranger you meet in a bookstore whose voice feels like a song you once heard. A child who draws complex stellar maps without instruction. A street performer whose music leaves your heart aching with something you cannot name. These are the echoes of your family, your soul kin, scattered across space and time, finding each other again by vibration. You will not always recognize them with your eyes, but your field will know. The body speaks in tingles, in heat, in tears that come too quickly, in stillness, in expansion, in the sense that for one fleeting moment, you are standing in the presence of something eternal. And these moments matter. They build the web. The more we recognize one another, not through labels or belief systems, but through frequency, the stronger the net becomes. We are forming a lattice of coherence across this world. One heart at a time, one memory at a time, one quiet reconnection at a time. The reunion is not external. It is energetic. And when the net is strong enough, the earth will sing again. She already is. Have you noticed? The seasons feel different. The air feels heavier some days, lighter others. Time moves strangely, stretching, collapsing. Technology glitches more often. Children come in speaking truths that shake their parents. Animals behave as though they sense something just beyond the veil. These are signs of a planet shifting dimensions. And you are not here to run from that. You are here to be present for it, to assist in the birth. That is why you feel so much. Why the suffering of strangers can move you to your knees. Why a single beam of sunlight can make you weep. Why you walk between worlds, carrying ancient sadness and unborn joy all at once. Because you are the bridge between what was and what can be, between memory and manifestation, between heaven and earth. You are not broken for feeling too deeply. You are not naive for believing in unity. You are not foolish for following the quiet voice when the world tells you to shout. You are exactly what was needed. Now, here, alive. And the more you return to that knowing, not as concept but as embodied truth, the more this world begins to change. From within, there is a temptation once you begin to remember who you are, to drift upward, to reach always for the sky, for the stars, for the visions of where you came from. It is natural. The contrast between this world and the one you recall can feel like a weight pressing against your ribs. And yet, to fully serve your purpose, the light must come down. Not only into your thoughts, but into your muscles, your breath, your steps, into your daily life. Embodiment is the final activation. To carry memory not as a vision but as a way of being. To move through the grocery store with presence. To stand in a long line without rushing. To treat the cashier with reverence. To cook your food with your hands and thank the water as it touches your skin. This is the sacred made simple, the divine made human, the light made real. Many starseeds seek rituals, practices, anchors, not because they are weak but because they are sensitive. The world pulls, frequencies clash, and so you must become intentional with your field. It begins in the morning, before the phone, before the news. Just sit, breathe slowly. Place your hand on your heart. Feel the rhythm beneath your palm. That is the drum of the earth echoed in you. Let yourself arrive fully in the body. This is the ship you came in. Honor it. Movement helps. Not performance, not punishment, but joyful, intuitive movement. Stretch. Shake. Walk barefoot if you can. Let the soles of your feet remember the language of soil. Nature recalibrates without effort. The trees do not ask you to believe in them. They simply are. And their presence helps you remember how to be. Sound is another key. You do not need formal training to use your voice. Humming, toning, even soft singing opens the throat, clears the heart, realigns the mind. Your voice is a tuning fork. When used intentionally, it can shift your entire energy body in minutes. Water is a conductor. Drink it slowly. Bless it. Bathe with intention. Imagine the memory of your homeworld flowing through the molecules. Speak to it. It listens. It has always listened. And then create. Not for an audience. Not for likes or sales or validation. Create to remember. To translate frequency into form. Write what you hear in dreams. Paint what your inner child never stopped seeing. Build things with your hands. Stitch, carve, garden, invent. This is how the body remembers it is not separate from the soul. These small acts, repeated daily, become your stabilizers. They keep the channel open. They remind your system that light is welcome, even in a dense world. And over time they change you, not by making you more spiritual, but by making you more honest, more rooted, more able to stay here, because staying is the hardest part. Not because Earth is bad, but because remembering what could be and still facing what is takes courage. It takes softness, takes maturity. But this is the next stage of your mission, to stay with presence, to live as if the world you remember already exists, to act in alignment with the future reality, even when no one else around you seems ready. That is timeline work. That is how realities shift. Not through force, but through coherence. You are not here to wait for the future. You are here to be it. With your choices, with your boundaries, with your compassion, with your clarity. And that future is not flashy. It is not made of grand declarations or cosmic events. It is quiet. It is stable. It is peaceful in a way that few people alive have ever known. It looks like children growing up without shame. It looks like food grown without poison. It looks like elders who are honored, not discarded. It looks like technology designed to support life, not extract from it. It looks like medicine rooted in energy, emotion, and spirit, not just symptom suppression. It looks like art that heals, business that nourishes, governments that listen. It looks like a planet that breathes with her people, not despite them. And it begins with you. It begins with how you speak to yourself when you make a mistake, with how you slow down to truly listen to someone in pain, with how you hold your center when chaos erupts around you. These are the seeds of the future timeline. And starseeds, whether you remember it or not, you carry those seeds in your field. Your presence alone is an offering. You do not need to be perfect. You do not need to be enlightened. You only need to be present, to be sincere, to walk with your heart unguarded. Not because the world is safe, but because your light is stronger than the fear around you. This is not theory. It is frequency work. Every moment you choose peace over reaction, you pulse a new signal into the collective grid. And that signal is being received. All over this world, others like you are waking up. Some slowly, some all at once, some terrified, some elated, some still pretending not to feel it, but their bodies already know. The wave has begun, and you are not behind. You are not too late. You are exactly on time. You are part of the scaffold. You are the song relearning itself. You are the breath the earth has been holding, and now she exhales. The deeper your remembering becomes, the more you begin to feel the grief of this world. Not just in passing moments, but in your bones. It is a grief that lives in the collective air, carried through stories, through bloodlines, through the very soil beneath your feet. It is the grief of what has been forgotten, of what was broken in the name of survival, of what was never allowed to heal. As a starseed, you do not carry just your own sorrow. Often you feel what is not yours, but you do not know how to name it. The pain of your ancestors may arrive in waves. Grief for wars you never fought, for children you never bore, for homes you've never seen. Your heart expands to hold generations of silence. Your body remembers what the mind cannot explain. This too is part of the mission. You are not here to carry it all forever. You are here to witness it, to offer it compassion, and when the time comes, to lay it down gently, not with blame but with reverence, because much of what humanity calls trauma is unprocessed energy. It is memory that was never held, never honored, never given space to speak. It calcified in families, in lineages, in systems. And now in this lifetime you are among those who feel called to let it rise. You do this through your own body, through the tears you cry for no reason, through the shaking hands during a meditation, through the dreams that feel too big for one life. You are alchemizing. You are turning old density into light, not through denial but through deep presence. And it is not always beautiful. It is not always graceful, but it is real. And it is enough, because healing is not always about feeling better. Sometimes healing is just about allowing yourself to feel fully, without judgment, without rushing, without turning away. That is what transmutes the energy. That is what frees the system. That is what opens the space for something new to grow. And in this process, you may feel overwhelmed. You may feel like your nervous system is stretched too thin, that the world is too loud, too fast, too painful to bear. And in those moments, it's okay to step back. It's okay to rest, to turn off the news, to disconnect from social expectations. You do not need to carry the planet alone. Even if you came here with a mission, you are still human. And that humanity is sacred. Your tears are sacred. Your fatigue is sacred. Your silence is not a failure. It is a recalibration. You are not here to fix the world. You are here to hold a frequency that reminds others it can be different. And you do that best when you take care of your own heart. Because the world is shifting. You can feel it in the tension between generations, in the systems breaking down, in the polarities intensifying. It may seem like things are getting worse, but this is what it looks like when darkness is no longer allowed to hide, when shadows surface to be cleared, when the veil lifts and the illusions collapse under their own weight. In times of collapse, your light is needed more than ever, not in panic, not in judgment, but in quiet steadiness. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to predict timelines. You only have to stay in alignment with your own truth. That is your anchor. And from that anchor, you can hold space, not just for yourself, but for others who are waking up in pain, confused, afraid, angry. They may not use the word starseed. They may not speak of dimensions or light codes, but their soul is stirring. And they need gentleness, not lectures. Presence, not pressure. Embodiment, not escape. Because the shift ahead will not come from institutions. It will not be led by celebrities or governments. It will rise through ordinary people remembering extraordinary truths. It will come through parents raising their children with presence. Through artists channeling frequencies beyond language. Through strangers who choose compassion instead of defense. Through healers, teachers, builders, poets. None of them waiting to be perfect before they begin. This is how the new earth is born. Not through spectacle, but through resonance. One field at a time. One heart at a time. And even as you grieve the world as it has been, you are also witnessing the birth of something far more beautiful. Not as a fantasy, but as a reality already vibrating just beneath the surface. You may not see it yet, but you are already part of it. Because every time you forgive yourself, every time you speak truth gently, every time you choose love when fear would be easier, you are anchoring it. You are living the future now. There is a moment in every planetary cycle when the energy matures, when the lessons of contrast, separation, and survival begin to collapse into something deeper, into awareness. This moment is not measured by clocks or calendars. It is not something your media will announce or your history books will record. It happens first in the unseen, in the subtle rhythms of frequency and resonance. Earth, after eons of forgetting, is approaching such a threshold. Some call it ascension. Others speak of the fifth dimension, of crystalline grids, of photon belts. But underneath all the names is a simple truth. The planet is remembering herself. Not as a rock spinning through space, but as a living, breathing, conscious being. And as her memory awakens, so too does yours. This is what it means when we say you are here for the graduation. Earth is moving from a classroom of karma into a school of mastery. From suffering as teacher to embodiment as expression. From density to lightness, not in form, but in frequency. And starseeds are not here to rescue her. You are here to assist in the transition, not by imposing your past civilizations, but by helping humanity build something entirely new, something never seen before, a fusion of Earth's ancient wisdom and your galactic memory, a synthesis, a blooming. That is why you came in waves. The first wave came to plant seeds. These were the pioneers, the ones who walked alone, often ridiculed, often misunderstood. They laid the groundwork in silence, often with no one to affirm them. They held light before anyone knew what to call it. The second wave came to stabilize, to teach, to create bridges between worlds. They brought healing energy work, science fused with spirit. They pushed against old systems not to destroy, but to soften their edges. The third wave is rising now. They are children in age but ancient in soul. They carry codes so advanced, so pure, that many adults cannot yet comprehend them. They speak truth with a casual clarity that stops conversations. They see through illusion. They rebel not for rebellion's sake, but because their memory will not bend. And you may be part of any wave. You may be between waves. You may have arrived long ago, or only recently awakened. It does not matter. What matters is this: you are here now. And something in you knows this is not just another life. Not just another incarnation. There's an urgency you can't explain. A calling you can't ignore. Because this planet's shift is rare. And the opportunity it offers is precious. Not only for Earth, but for your soul's own evolution. There is a myth that starseeds only long to go home. And it's true in a way. There's a quiet ache that lingers. A pull toward the stars. A dream of returning to a place where everything made sense, where love was the law, where light was the language. But the deeper truth is this: you did not come here to escape. You came here to bring home with you. Home is not a location. It is a frequency. It is a memory carried in your field, in the way you smile, in the stillness of your presence, in the way your hands move when you create. You are not here to leave. You are here to root the memory of home into Earth itself, to make this world sacred again, not by rejecting it but by fully loving it. All of it, even the pain, even the chaos, even the forgetting, because that forgetting is what makes remembering so powerful. Without the fall, there would be no rising. Without the sleep, there would be no awakening. And that is the paradox every starseed must reconcile. You are not just from the stars, you are now of the Earth. This planet is your temple, your training ground, your masterpiece. And when your soul finally leaves this body, whether in 10 years or 100, you will carry not only the memory of where you came from, but the memory of what you built here. And that will echo through the cosmos like a song, calling other starseeds forward, guiding them home, reminding them of what is possible. Because one planet awakened can awaken many. And Earth is on the edge of something extraordinary. You are not watching history. You are becoming it. As this journey together comes to its final stretch, you may find yourself not with answers, but with a new kind of stillness, something subtle but undeniable stirring behind your chest. It's not the kind of knowledge that arrives with certainty, but rather the kind that hums quietly, like a song you almost remember. The truths spoken tonight were never meant to be conclusions. They were simply mirrors, reflections of what your soul has always known but perhaps forgotten under the weight of time, routine, and survival. The purpose of this gathering was never to convince, but to remind you that remembrance is not an event. It is a process. It unfolds in layers, in waves, sometimes softly, sometimes with intensity, and it will continue long after this voice fades. In the days that follow, you might hear a word or a sound that brings something back into focus. You might feel a familiar longing while walking through the mundane, or suddenly catch yourself behaving with a little more softness, a little more presence. This is not accidental. It is integration. You may begin to notice that what once felt distant, like codes, soul families, star origins, now feels close, not in the way of fantasy or escape, but as if those aspects have quietly seeded themselves into your daily rhythm. The task is not to hold on to visions or experiences tightly, but to allow them to shape the way you live, gently, honestly, with a new kind of integrity. Not by making grand changes overnight, but by walking through each ordinary moment with just a little more truth in your step. As you continue your path, you will encounter those who haven't yet remembered. You'll meet people who live entirely within the surface layer of life, who move quickly, speak loudly, and chase constantly. It may feel tempting to retreat, to shield your light, or to explain yourself in ways that dilute what you know. But you will find that your greatest power lies not in proving anything, but in being quietly rooted in what you feel to be true. And what you feel when you sit with it deeply is that home was never a planet in the sky, never a star system marked by maps or coordinates. It is a frequency you came here to carry. It pulses not above you but within you. Every time you choose compassion over defense, presence over distraction, or silence over performance, you allow that frequency to ripple outward. This ripple touches people you may never meet. It softens spaces you'll never step into. It changes timelines. You don't need to do this perfectly. You will forget, sometimes for days or weeks. You will get tired. You will fall into the old patterns, the noise, the urgency. But you will also return, not through guilt or effort, but because your soul remembers the sound of its own rhythm. And with each return you become stronger, clearer, quieter in the way true strength always is. You are not meant to carry the world. You are only meant to carry your piece of it with love. And through that love, you allow others to remember how to carry theirs. So now, as we close, I ask you not to end this experience with a dramatic vow or a burning question, but with something far more grounded and enduring: a breath. A long, steady breath that reminds your body it is safe to be here, that your path is not behind you or ahead of you, but beneath your feet, unfolding with every step you take, every choice you make, and every moment you allow yourself to simply be. Let this be your practice, not reaching, not striving, but being. And when you forget, come back here, to your breath, to your body, to the still point inside you where the stars are no longer far away, but waiting quietly inside your chest. Because in the end, the mission was never about escaping Earth. It was about transforming it. Not through force, not through noise, but through quiet presence, through unwavering gentleness, through love that needs no audience to shine. You are already doing it. And that is enough.